بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. معاكم مستر حسين شريف. Today we complete the main principles of heredity, second part. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to, number one, identify Mendel's laws of heredity. Number two, determine the dominant and recessive traits in Mendel's experiments on the bee plant. Number three, identify some of the dominant and recessive traits in the human being. Using symbols to represent the experiments of heredity, male individual, mating, female individual, parents, gametes, first generation, and second generation. The two factors of pure heredity trait are symbolized by two similar letters, often representing the first letter of the name of dominant trait أو اللي هي الصفة السائدة in English language, okay? Where the dominant trait is represented by a capital letter. The dominant trait is represented by capital letter, and the recessive trait is represented by a small letter, okay? To express the symbols about stem height or tall in bee plant, the gene of tall stem trait is represented by T capital, and the gene of short stem trait is represented by T small. So the genetic structure of pure dominant individuals is symbolized by two capital letters, T capital, T capital. The genetic structure of the recessive individuals is symbolized by two small letter, T small, T small. And the genetic structure of hybrid dominant individual is symbolized by two letters. One is capital and the other is small. T capital, T small. Which can explain on the basis of genetic principles the result of mating between two bee plants. One of them has pure yellow seeds, dominant trait, and the other of pure green seeds, recessive trait. Mentions the ratio between the individuals until the second generation. Okay. Steps of idea of answer. Number one, parents, B, the first generation. The two parents are pure, and the gene of yellow color of seeds dominates over the gene of green color of seeds. And the plant of pure yellow seeds is symbolized by Y capital, Y capital. And the plant of pure green seeds is symbolized by Y small, Y small. Then both symbol mating between two parents, X, okay? Number two, gametes, G capital. The two factors of each trait segregate when formation of gametes during meiosis division, okay? The two factors of each trait segregate between our when formation of gametes. Number three, first generation or F1, the two factors of each trait aggregate again on occurrence of fertilization process to form the individuals of the first generation. Number four is the ratio between the produced individuals. The ratio between the produced individuals is determined where each individual represents 25% from the generation. Okay? B. B plant of yellow seeds, pure, okay? Y capital, genetic structure. B plant, green seeds, pure, genetic structure, Y small, Y small. Segregation of factors, Y capital, and Y small, Y small. First generation, Y capital, Y small. If this pollen grain and this ovule fertilization produce Y capital, Y small, Y capital, Y small, Y capital, Y small, and Y small, Y small. Ratio 100% B plants of yellow seeds or hybrid. Okay, Y capital, Y small, and Y capital, Y small, Y capital, Y small, Y capital, Y small. In the second generation, parent, Y capital, Y small, B plant of yellow seeds hybrid, B plant, Y capital, Y small, yellow seeds hybrid to gametes when segregations of factors occur, Y capital, Y small, Y capital, Y small. Second generation, Y capital, Y capital, Y capital, Y small, Y capital, Y small, and Y small, Y small. Okay. Ratio 75% plants of yellow seeds, ratio to plants of green seeds 25%. Okay. That's 3 ratio to 1. Y capital, Y capital, B plants of yellow seeds pure. Y capital, Y small, and Y capital, Y small, B plants of yellow seeds hybrid. Y small, B plants of green seeds pure. Comparison between dominant trait and recessive trait. Okay. Dominant trait, it appears when two similar factors for dominant trait aggregate, or when one factor for dominant trait and the other of recessive trait aggregate. Two options, okay, to appear the dominant trait when one factor for dominant trait and the other of recessive trait, or our second option, when two similar factors for dominant trait aggregate. While recessive trait, it appears when two similar factors for recessive trait aggregate. One option, okay, to appear recessive trait. Dominant trait, it appears with a ratio 100% in the first generation and a ratio 75% in the second generation. While recessive trait, it disappears, بتختفي تماما ها, in the first generation and appears with a ratio 25% in the second generation. Dominant trait, it is pure or hybrid, while recessive trait, it is always pure. Two similar factors for recessive trait, so it's always pure. Examples of dominant trait, the trait of yellow color seeds of peas. Example of recessive trait, the trait of green color seeds of peas. Mendel's experiments in heredity. Second, study the inheritance of two pairs of contrasting traits. Mendel conducted a mixed pollination between two bee plants, one of pure tall stem and red flowers, pure tall stem and red flowers. The second with pure short stem and white flowers. Mendel observed that all the first generation plants had tall stem and red flowers. Okay, all the first generation plants had tall stem and red flowers, carry the dominant trait at a ratio of 100%. Okay. T capital, T capital, or capital, or capital T plant of tall stem and red flowers pure. Mating T small, R small, R small. T plant of short stem and white flowers. Gametes T capital, R capital, R capital, T small, R small, T small, R small. First generation, T capital, T small, R capital, R small, T capital, T small, R capital, R small, T capital, T small, R capital, R small, T capital, T small, R capital, R small. Okay. All the first generation plants had tall stem and red flowers, carry the dominant trait at a ratio of 100%. According to second generation, parent T capital, T small, R capital, R small, T capital, T small, R capital, R small. الجميع طبعا T capital, R capital, T capital, R small, T small, R capital, T small, R small, T capital, R capital, T capital, R small, T small, R capital, T small, R small. Okay. Second generation ratio, the traits of individuals of second generation. Tall stem and red flowers. 9. Short stem and white flowers. 3. Short stem and red flowers. 3. Short stem and white flowers. 1. Okay. According to each pair of contrasting traits, the result ratio 3 ratio 1. Okay. Tall stem and flower colors. Exercise: a pea plant with yellow seeds and red flower, Y capital, Y capital, R capital, R capital, pollinates another one green seed and white flower, Y capital, Y capital, R small, R small. Explain on the basis of genetic principles, genetic structure for the first and second generation. Will be Y capital, Y capital, R capital, R capital, Y small, Y small, R small, R small. Okay. First generation, F1, Y capital, Y small, R capital, R small. According to gametes, Y capital, R capital, Y small, R capital, Y capital, R small, Y small, R small. And the other gametes, Y capital, R capital, Y small, R capital, Y capital, R small, Y small, R small. Okay. Y capital, R capital with Y capital, R capital. Okay. And phenotypes 9 and 3, 3 ratio 1. Okay. And every trait, okay, it's ratio 3 ratio 1 in second generation. Okay. So Mendel deduced that the inheritance of one trait has no effect on the inheritance of another trait. So he puts his second law, the law of independent assortment of hereditary factors. Okay. That's way too pure different. Feeling a pair of more or more of each pair is inherited independently of the others and appears in the second generation at a ratio 3 dominant trait ratio to 1 recessive trait. Law of independent assortment of hereditary factors. Mendel's second law. The dominant and recessive traits in human being. Scientists found that many human hereditary traits follow the Mendelian heredity, where the trait is controlled by one pair of genes. The individuals that inherit at least one dominant gene from one of their parents will have the dominant trait. Those who receive recessive gene from both parents will have the recessive traits. Okay. We show some of the human traits that follow the principle of complete dominance. According to Tong, dominant, the ability to rule the tongue, dominant trait, and the inability to rule the tongue, recessive trait. Okay. Number two, ear lobe. Free ear lobe, dominant trait, and attached earlobe, recessive trait. Number three, nature of hair. Curly hair, dominant trait, while straight or smooth hair, recessive trait. Number four, color of hair. Black hair, dominant trait, while light color hair, recessive trait. Number five, size of eyes. Wide eyes, dominant trait, while narrow eyes, recessive trait. Number six, color of eyes. Brown eyes, dominant trait, while colored eyes, blue or green or gray, recessive trait. Number seven, cheek dimples. Dimples is dominant trait, while no dimples, recessive trait. Number eight, facial freckles. No freckles, dominant trait, while freckles is recessive trait. Exercise. Explain on genetic basis the traits of offspring resulted from the crossing between a man has curly hair, it's its genetic structure H capital, H small, and woman has smooth hair showing genetic structure. Answer. The smooth hair is a recessive trait. So the genetic structure of the woman is H small, H small. Okay. Man, H capital, H small, the parent. Gametes, H capital, H small, sperms, and H small, the ovum. First generation, H capital, H small, H capital, H small, H small, H small, H small, H small. Okay. Ratio 50%, ratio to 50%, or 1:1. Okay. 50% offspring of curly hair and 50% offspring of smooth hair. Guidelines to solve problems. If mating take place between two individuals and this mating produce resulting offspring 100% hybrid dominant trait. This means this means that parental cross pure dominant trait mating recessive trait. Okay, if the resulting offspring 100% hybrid dominant, this means that parental cross hybrid dominant trait plus recessive trait, hybrid dominant trait, like T capital T small, okay? Recessive trait, T small, like this, okay? If resulting offspring 75% dominant trait and 25% recessive trait. This means that parental cross hybrid dominant trait plus hybrid dominant trait. Okay, two parents is hybrid, or two parent dominant dominant trait are hybrid. Guidelines to solve problems. If mating take place between two individuals and this mating produce resulting offspring 100% hybrid dominant trait. This means that parental cross between pure dominant trait and recessive trait. If the resulting offspring 50% dominant trait and 50% recessive trait, this means that parental cross between hybrid dominant trait and recessive trait. If resulting offspring 75% dominant trait and 25% recessive trait, this means that parental cross between hybrid dominant trait and hybrid dominant trait. Okay, the two parent hybrid. The chemical structure of nucleic DNA. The cell nucleus contains chromosomes. Okay. The chromosomes chemically contains DNA combined with protein. DNA combined with protein. DNA carries the heredity of the living organism. Scientists have found that DNA consists of small parts called genes. The cell in nucleus contain chromosomes. Okay, chromosome have DNA. Okay, the DNA nucleic acid consists of small parts called genes. Definition of genes: they are parts of DNA present on the chromosomes, and they are responsible for appearing the individual's hereditary traits. Nucleic acid, DNA, consists of small parts called genes. Each of them consists of structural units called nucleotides. A model of Watson and Crick for composition of DNA molecules. They make a model of DNA molecule DNA molecule is composed of two strands coiled around each other, forming a double helix shape. Adel and Tatum take Nobel Prize. They discovered the means how genes control in appearance of traits, where they found that every gene gives a special enzyme responsible for occurrence chemical reaction to form protein appearing a special hereditary trait. Gene gives enzyme responsible for occurrence of chemical reaction, resulting protein showing a specific hereditary trait. Applications number one, inheritance of the trait of brown eyes color dominant trait. When a person inherits from one of his parents the gene responsible for appearance of the trait of brown eyes color, so this gene gives an enzyme which is responsible for occurrence of a chemical reaction, resulting a protein work on the appearance of the trait of brown eyes color. Number two, inheritance of the trait of black hair color, dominant trait. When a person inherits from one of his parents the gene responsible for appearance of the trait of black hair color, so this gene gives an enzyme which is responsible for occurrence of a chemical reaction. Chemical reaction resulting a protein. A protein works on the appearance of the trait of black hair color. Genetic engineering is one of the branches of modern genetic. Genetic engineering is one of the of most important application in medical agriculture. Genetically modified rice, about 500,000 people lose their sight every year due to the deficiency of vitamin A, causing malnutrition. This is due to depend on eating rice. Solving this problem is by producing rice with provitamin A by changing the genetic structure. Give reasons for deficiency of vitamin A is widespread on those depend on eating rice because the ice doesn't contain provitamin A, which known by carotene, which is converted to vitamin A inside human body. Okay. Life application, the human genetic genome. It is genetic map that shows the complete set of genes that are present on the human chromosomes. Aims of the project: determination of all the human inheriting factors, identification the gene responsible for the various diseases like cancer, determination the various mutation or طفرات on the function of the gene, understanding the human biology and identifying the single differences in the genome between person and another. The resultants of the project. This project showed the similarity of humans in more than 99% from the sequence of DNA. اوكي، يعني كلنا البشر متشابهين في اكتر من 99%، 99%. اوكي. There is a single difference in humans, such as eyes color, skin color, height. Despite the small percentage of these differences, they affect to a great extent the harmful environmental effects like bacteria, medicines, and various treatments. In this lesson, these concepts, number one, the inheritance of two pairs of contrasting traits. Number two, Mendel's laws of heredity. Number three, some of the dominant and recessive traits in the human being. وكده نكون وصلنا لنهاية حصة اليوم، أتمنى نكون فهمنا، ونتقابل على خير إن شاء الله في حصة جديدة، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.